All right, guys, for our do now today, our directions tell us that we are going to be drawing the line for each given set of information. So on your line, I have here, I want you to label at least 2 coordinates. And it looks like with all 4 questions, we are given a y-intercept and we are given a slope. So I'm going to get a piece of graph paper out. And we're going to start with number 1. Okay, so for number 1, we are given our y-intercept of 0, 5, and our slope, which is -3, 2. So I'm going to start by drawing a graph, drawing my x and y axis. Alright, so there is my y, and then here is my x. Alright, and I'll label that this is number 1. Okay, so did everybody get this far at least? Good deal. Alright, so we have these 2 bits of information here for number 1. What should we work with first when we're trying to draw a line? What do you guys think? Should we work with the y-intercept or the slope first?
The y.
The y-intercept. Yes, exactly. So the reason we want to work with this first is because this is giving us a coordinate. We know where this point is going to be on this graph. The slope's going to tell us how steep that line will be, but we're not going to know where to start if we don't have a coordinate. So our first coordinate here is 0, 5. Now, as a reminder, a little review, the x value comes first in a coordinate, and the y value comes second in a coordinate. All that it's telling us is how far to draw that point in each direction, either the x direction or the y direction. So if our first point is 0, 5, we'll start here at 0, and we're going to go up 5. Perfect. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is my first point, and I'm going to go ahead and label that 0, 5. Okay, perfect. Did everybody get that far? Good. Now we have a slope. Our slope is -3 over 2. What can we say, or what can we know about slope?
The rise and run.
Yeah, we know that slope is the same thing as rise over run. And our rise is that up and down. So it's really the x direction. And our run is how far we go left or right. Oh, sorry guys, I wrote x, I meant to write y. This is the y direction, and our run is left or right in the x direction. My bad. Hope I didn't confuse anybody too much there. Okay, so whenever we are trying to draw a line and we are given a point and a slope, we aren't just going to go back and start from our 0, 0. We're going to start from the point they gave us, right?
Yes.
Yes. So our slope was -3 over 2. So where are we going to go from
We're
here?
going to go left.
So we're starting with our rise and then our run, remember? So what's our rise going to be? -3. So I'm going to go down 3. I'll start here and go 1, 2, 3. And then what's my run? 2. So I'm going to go over 2. 1, 2. And here is the second point that I found. Now it says we need to label 2 coordinates. So what are we going to call this coordinate? How do we find that? I heard somebody say it is 2, 2. And in case you're confused, this is how we would label a coordinate if we don't have a coordinate given to us. What we do is we look down and see where it falls on the x-axis first, which right here we can see that it falls on x equals 2. We'd start here and go 1, 2. So there's our x. And then we're going to see how far up or down it goes in the y direction. This point is hitting the line right here at y equals 1, 2. So there's our x and there's our y. All right, what do we have left to do now? Draw a line. So all we need to do is get a ruler. And if you need rulers, guys, there's a bin up at the front of the room with them. If you need a ruler, you're welcome to grab them. All we got to do is connect the dots and draw our line. Okay. Does everybody's line look kind of similar to this?
Yes.
Awesome. Did anybody do something wrong? Star, what'd you do? Tell me about it. I bet you're not the only one.
Okay. I keep forgetting the bunny hop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that bunny hop that you called it. I keep forgetting to do that, so I automatically, on the slope when it's negative, I wanted to go X and then down.
Gotcha.
So,
Well, here's the thing about slope is whichever way you do it, if we start here and we know our rise is -3 and our run is 2, we'll start at that first point, and if we do our rise first, we would go 1, 2, 3. Now we're here. And then our run being 2, we would just jump over 2. We'd go 1, 2. And there's our point. Now, you could do it in reverse as long as you're using the correct values. So if your run is +2, I could start here again and go 1, 2, and then I've got -3 for my rise. I'm here and I'm going to go -1, -2, -3. Look, I still landed on the same point. So it doesn't necessarily matter what order you do it in, as long as you're going in the right direction. As long as you go in the right direction, +2, -3. All right. Anybody have questions about number 1? Okay. Let's check number 2. For number 2, I have a y-intercept of 0, -2. And I'll move this up so everybody can see better. And then my slope is 5/6. That's a positive 5/6. Okay, let me do this here. Let me just write this to the side. Number 2, we have 0, -2, and then our slope is 5/6. Okay. All right, what's my first step here?
doing your y-intercept.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and plot the first coordinate they gave us, the y-intercept. So if I start here at 0, 0, my x is 0, so am I going to move left or right any? Nope. My y is -2, so where do I go? Down 2. 1, 2. So I'm going to draw my first point right there, and I'm going to label it 0, -2. Okay, I've got my first point. Now what do I do? Yeah, so I have here my rise over run, my slope. My rise is 5. My run is 6. So exactly what Michael said. I'm going to start by using my rise, my 5. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how far am I going to run? Over 6. And it's positive, so we're going in the positive direction. So I'm going to start from here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Here is my new point. So I'm going to just draw these tick marks so I have an easier time counting. Okay. What are we going to label this coordinate now?
That one, 6, 5, 6, 3.
Okay, I hear 6, 3 and I hear 6, 5. Let's find out together which one's right.
Oh, sorry, it is 6, 3.
That's okay, that's okay.
5, I guess.
You're no big deal. So we're starting with the X. We count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, our X is 6. And then we just want to see how high it is, what Y direction it has. So we can count our squares here, or we can go to the side. We've got 1, 2, 3. So our point is 6, 3.
That's bad, because I even had numbers written on mine.
And you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. Even I do. So I'm sure there'll be a day I tell you something totally wrong. And I'm sure I've already done it. Okay, guys. Now we just got to draw our line. And we're done. Good job, everybody. Does anybody have questions about number 2? Anybody confused about what we did? Do we feel okay to move on to 3? All right, let's look at number 3 now. Number 3, we are given the y-intercept 0, -4, and our slope is -2. So I'm going to bring this up and we're going to start on number 3 here. Okay, first thing I need to do is draw a graph. Give myself some space. Oh man, I'm going to have to draw this one a little funny to make us all fit together. Okay, so there's my y-axis. And then I'm going to draw mine kind of goofy looking just because I know that I'm starting with a negative and my slope is negative, so I'm going to be going even further. There's my x. All right, where do we start here, guys?
I started by achieving the slope to -2/1.
Yes, okay, so sometimes when we see just a whole number as our slope, it can be a little confusing because we don't know how to make that rise over run. So what Michael said, and I would suggest everybody does this too, is we're going to go ahead and change this -2 into a fraction. And anytime you want to make a whole number into a fraction, you just write it over 1. So now we have our slope in rise over run form. Rise is -2, our run is 1. Okay, now what could we do?
Start with the y-intercept.
Yeah, let's start with the y-intercept they gave us. The point is 0, -4. So, where am I going? Yep, we're at x equals 0. We don't need to move right or left. So our y is -4. So we're just going to go down 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here's our first point. I'm going to go ahead and label that 0, -4. All right. We've gotten our first point on our graph. What is our next step?
Rise over run.
Rise over run. Our rise is -2. Our run is 1. I'll write that to the side. So where are we starting from? Yeah, we're going to start from that first point they gave us. And now we're going to do our rise, which is -2. So I'm going to go down 2, so -1, -2. And then our run is 1, so I'm just going to go over 1 right there. Okay, we've got another point here. How are we going to label this one?
1, -6.
Yeah, let's count. In our x direction, we're going over 1. So is it going to be a +1 or a -1?
Say positive.
+1. Remember, this is our positive x's. This is our negative x's. This is our positive y's. This is our negative y's. So our first part of the coordinate, our x value is 1. And what's our y value?
-6.
Yeah, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -6. Perfect. All right, guys, all we got to do is connect the dots. I'm going to do this here. I know, is it storming right now? I'm hearing some rumbling. I love storms.
It was starting to rain and I was coming back up.
Really? Let me think. I want to make this connect right.
Now, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, with both of them being negatives.
Yes.
Okay, we have our rise and our fall on the slope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if -2 is the rise, are we not supposed to go up?
Ooh, okay, so great question. And I'm going to repeat your question for people that can't hear you in the video.
I messed up on that one.
That's okay. So first of all, if we ever have a negative number as a slope, we can remember that a negative slope means our line is going to point downward. We always know that a negative slope is going to have a downward pointing line. If we had a positive slope like this one, we know that we're going to have an upward pointing line. So if it confuses you to try to figure out which direction to go, from your starting point, you want to think to yourself, if my slope is negative, I know that my next point has to be lower than this one. It has to be, because if I made it higher, that line's going to point up and it's going to make it look like I have a positive slope. Does that make sense, Star?
It does, it absolutely does.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good, good, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we've got one more, number 4. For number 4, our y-intercept was 0, 3, and our slope is 3/4. So before we even start this, while I'm writing a graph, is our slope positive or negative?
Positive.
It's positive, so our line is going to face upwards. We know that. So let's label our axes. We've got y and x. And let's start with our point, 0, 3. Where am I going to put that?
Zero's in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to go up.
Exactly. X is 0, so I don't go left or right. Y is 3, so I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. Right there. And I'm going to go ahead and label that point 0, 3. Okay. I've got my first point. Now I need to look at my slope. My slope is 3/4. So where should I go from here?
Start with 3, go up 3.
Yes, my rise is 3, so I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. And my run is 4. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good. Now I'm going to draw some tick marks so that I can count and figure out how to label this coordinate. What am I going to write for this coordinate here?
I got 4, 6.
4, 6. Let's double check. Our x is 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. And our y, how high it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. 4, 6. Now we just need to do what?
Draw a line.
Draw a line, connect the dots. And as you can see, because our slope was positive, we have an upward line. So we know we did our slope correctly. All right, that's what number 4 should look about like. I'm gonna label this. Perfect. Any questions on that? Any questions? All right, we're gonna move on, guys. I'm gonna put this to the side. Today, we're gonna learn a couple of things. So we just finished Unit 1B. We quizzed over it last week and everybody did really well. So we're moving on to we're gonna move on to a new unit today. Our new unit, if you're wanting to start a title in your notes, is called Unit 1C. And in this unit, we are learning how to write linear equations. You're going to be writing equations, guys. So I'll leave that up here for just a second if anybody wants to copy it. All right, so again, you don't have to write this. I'm just going to give you a heads up. This is what we are learning today. We are going to learn how to find slope. So we're going to have some problems where we don't know what the slope is, and we're going to be able to find it from just looking at a line on a graph or from a set of coordinates that we might be given. Then the next thing we're going to do today is we are going to learn how to write an equation in slope-intercept form, which is that y equals mx plus b. And we'll learn how to do that in two different ways. So let's go ahead and start with our first problem. And today what we're going to do is we're going to do some practice together after we do these first little examples. And we're going to be using our whiteboards today, but we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, so first of all, let's start with our purple line. If I was given a line that has 2 points here, what could we do to figure out what our slope is?
Start with,
We can start with either point. Which point do you guys want to start with?
start at the bottom.
Let's start with the bottom one, okay? So I'm going to start here with my point that is 1, -2. And I'm just going to count. My points are here, and I know that slope is rise over run. So I'm going to write that over here just as a reminder. My slope is rise over run. All right. Now, just by looking at this line, we can see that it's pointing downwards. So is our slope going to be negative or positive?
Negative.
It's going to be a negative slope since it's pointing down. So I'm going to go ahead and to the side, or at the bottom here, I'll write my slope with a little colon here. And I'm going to go ahead and write a negative in because I know I'm going to get a negative slope. Now all we need to do is count our rise and our run. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw the slope, and it's going to look kind of like a triangle. So my point here is going to cross through x equals 1, and it goes all the way up to this point at y equals 2. So I've created a little triangle here. All right, does everybody see that? Now, all I need to do is count how many tick marks I'm moving in the rise direction and how many I'm moving in the run direction. So, all I'm going to do is count. I'm going to start from this bottom point, and I'm going to see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So, right here, I just found out that my rise is 4. Now I'm just going to count my run, which is how far we move this way in the x direction to get to the second point. So I'm starting here at x equals 1, and then I'm going to count from there. I go over 1, 2, 3. So my run is 3. Does everybody see what I've done there so far? Okay, so I just found my rise and my run. My rise is 4, my run is 3. I know that my slope is negative. So what should I write for my answer here? What is the slope of this line?
4 over 3.
Yeah, it's going to be negative 4 over 3. That's not so bad, guys.
So when you counted up for the rise,
Mm-hmm.
we leave the 0 point out. We go just for the number-based lines, right?
So we're counting every line it crosses. Let me actually take this
So wouldn't that
triangle that we
be
found. If I counted wrong, let me check. So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here's the points that I grabbed. This is the triangle that I made here. If I did that correctly, it should line up pretty nicely. Okay, so
Oh, it didn't cross over the 0.
yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
we are just gonna be counting every box that it goes over. We're just trying to find the length of each side of the triangle that we made. So our rise, we start here, or we can start here, and we're just gonna count how many squares is in between. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Oh, did I count wrong? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Nope, I just drew it wrong. Sorry, guys. Okay, we're gonna scrap that paper. That's gonna confuse y'all. Let me just redraw this graph on graph paper. I was making these notes at home, and I don't have any graph paper at home, so it made it a little difficult. I need to bring some home. So my first point was -2 up 2. Okay, so there's my first point. And then my second point was over 1 down 2. So 1, 1, 2. Here we go. All right, now I'm going to draw this line. Let's do it from here. I think this will be a little bit easier to understand. Okay. So now that I have it all written out, let's do that whole process over again. So we're going to count our rise, and then we're going to count our run. So my rise, again, is just how far up we go. And my run is how far over or left to right we go. Then we're just going to count each of the points. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 for my rise. So I've got rise equals 4. And then my run, I did the same thing. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. So my run is 3. And we know by looking at our line here that our slope is negative. So if slope equals rise over run, then we just put those in. Our rise is 4. Our run is 3. And we know that it's negative because it points downward. So our slope would be -4 over 3. How's everybody feel about that process?
Okay, it just looked like it was 5.
Yeah, and you know what? It's probably because I drew it on this kind of paper.
That's okay. I was the reason I was asking because it just kind of, if you can't do the bunny up.
Right. No, I appreciate you asking because I'm sure somebody else was probably thinking the same thing. All right, can we try the next one? Okay, let's look at this graph here. And again, I'm gonna draw it over here just so that it looks a little nicer, easier to work with. So I have my first point is over 4 up 2. 1, 2, 3, 4 up 2. It's going to be right there. My second point is -3, -3. So I'm going to do 3 tick marks on the negative side on either here. Right there. Okay. Now I'll draw my line and we'll try to find the slope of this. Okay. First of all, looking at this line, is it pointing upwards or downwards?
Upwards.
It's pointing upwards. We're going to have a positive slope. Positive slope. All right. So we know that we don't need to put any negatives in there. What should we do first to find the slope?
Find the rise.
Yeah, let's count our rise and see how far up we're going to go. Which point do we want to start with? Bottom or the top?
Bottom.
Yeah, let's just start with our bottom. number. So we have here, we're going to go up to where this point hits on the y-axis. So here's our rise. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll write that to the side here. Rise is 5. All right. Now, how are we going to find our run?
Go over go to the X side.
Yes, we're just going to count from this point we found here over to the next point on the line. And we're going to count how many spaces the run is. So we've got here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my run is 7. All right. So we have our rise and our run. What is the slope formula?
7, 5.
Yeah, our answer is going to be 7. Oh, it's going to be the 5 and the 7 in some order. How do we write slope? Is it run over rise or rise over run?
Rise over run.
Rise over run. So let's plug in the values we found. We know that we're going to be finding rise over run. What's our rise? 5. Our rise is 5 right here. We found it was 5. And then what is our run? 7. So our slope would be 5 over 7. And we just leave it as a fraction. We don't need to solve it any further. Okay. Any questions about that, guys? Any questions? We feel okay about that? Finding slope with a line that we're given? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and write this answer in here. We got that our slope for this one was 5 over 7. And I'll just trace over this. Our slope for the first one was -4 over 3. All right, guys. So that's the first way to find slope. If you are given a line, the way to find it is to count your rise, count your run, and then put it in a fraction. The only thing that we need to make sure of is that we make it the proper sign, whether it's positive or negative. So a negative slope points down, a positive slope points up. Okay, I'll leave this up here for a second if anybody needs to write. I'm going to have you guys come up here, and we're going to use these dry erase boards today. You can get yourself a dry erase board, and if you don't have a marker or an eraser, there's extras up here. So go ahead and get yourself one of those, and we are going to do some practice problems together. Say that again.
No, she just paused it a second ago.
Oh, you are correct. It is.
Oh.
Dang it. Does that mean it was paused while I gave that whole explanation?
I don't think so, because I thought it was going.
I don't
It looks like
know.
it's recording.
It is now.
Didn't pause it.
Oh man. Okay, well. Okay. So, here is what we are going to do now. Everybody should have a dry erase board with a marker and an eraser. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to write over to the side that slope formula that we just found. We've got m equals y1, y2. I guess it won't matter which order you do as long as you make it consistent. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to be drawing a few lines on the board, and I'm going to have you copy them. First, we're going to do it where you can see it visually, and you could even just count for the first couple to find the slope. And then we're going to make it a little more difficult and do it without this side, and we'll go work our problems out on this side. So, the first line I'm going to give you, my first point is at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So I'm at 4, -3. And 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1, and 4, 1. Okay, I am going to draw this line, and then I want you to find the slope of it. Okay, and I'll pause the recording each time I give a new problem. Okay, so I did fix this point. It should be -4, -3. But if we have a picture of a line, we don't necessarily have to use that formula just yet. We could just count our points, okay? So since our line is pointing upward, I know I'm gonna have a positive slope. So I'm just gonna count my rise and count my run. My rise is wherever it goes up to, and it looks like it goes up to y = 1. So my rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I'm going to write that to the side. Rise equals 4. And my run, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. My run is 8. So you should have got a slope of 4/8, or if you were to simplify, that's 1/2. 1/2. And you can tell that 1/2 is correct because my rise is 1, my run is 2. I could go up 1/2, there's a point there. Up 1/2, there's a point there. Up 1/2, there's a point there. And it goes on forever and ever and ever. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Let's try another one. Another one just like that. This time I am going to give you the point -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay, my x is -4. My y is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the second point is going to be right here where my x is 1, 2. My y is also 2. Okay. I'm going to draw this line and then I want you to find slope. All right. Pause this recording, go ahead and find the slope. All right, so I had a couple people tell me that it was -1/2 or -3/6, so let's go ahead and check that. Remember, our slope is rise over run. Now, just by looking at this line here, do we have a negative slope or a positive slope? Negative, because it's pointing downwards. So we know that our slope is going to be a negative number. So I'm going to put a negative right there, just where I'm going to put my answer. Now let's just count our rise and our run. Our rise is going to be the distance of height between the 2 points. So let's just go here. Or we could do here. This is also going to show the distance. And let's count. We've got 1, 2, 3. Either way, 1, 2, 3. My rise is 3. Okay. Now I gotta find my run. My run is just the distance between the x values in the coordinates. So here's my run, and I could either do the one on top or on bottom. Either way, I've got 2 different triangles I could work with. So let's count. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If I did it up here, I'd get the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to just plug that in. My rise over run, -3/6. Or we could simplify it. 3 over 6 is the same thing as 1/2. All right. How do we feel about that, guys? We feel okay? We feel okay at least about doing it visually?
Yeah.
Good, good. We're going to do some more practice after lunch, working with the formula, okay? So we probably are going to have more of a full-length class today just because there's a lot of new material to introduce to you guys. But I'm going to go ahead and call it for there. Pause this recording. Okay, guys, we are back from lunch. And before lunch, we discovered our slope formula. We found that if we take the y from the second coordinate minus the y from the first coordinate and put it over the x from the second coordinate minus the x from the first coordinate, we are going to come up with a value for slope. So just to make sure that we feel good about this, let's run through some examples together. I'm going to give you 2 coordinates and we are going to find the slope. So for example, I have the coordinates 3, 5 and -2, 4. So what we need to do here is we need to put these coordinates into this equation so that we can find out what slope is. So first of all, let's label our coordinates just so we don't lose track of anything. Which one do we want to call the first coordinate?
X3.
Yeah, let's use this first one here, 3, 5. We'll call this coordinate 1, and that means we'll call this one coordinate 2. So now let's label our x values and our y values. Okay, so our x in the first coordinate is 3, so we would call that x1. And our x in the second coordinate is -2, so we would call this x2. Then we're going to look at our y values. In the first coordinate it is 5, so 5 would be y1. And in the second coordinate our y value is 4, so that will be our y2. Okay. Now, to find slope, all we need to do is plug our x1 and our y1 into the right places, and then our x2 and our y2 into the right places. So, what am I going to write on the top half? What is y2 minus y1? What numbers am I going to write in that first part of the problem?
5 and 4.
5 and 4. Okay, so we have our y values. Which one is y2?
4.
4. So we're going to write 4 minus y1, which is 5. So 4 minus 5. Then we're going to do our x's on the bottom. We've got x2 minus x1. Which value is x2? -2 minus, and what's x1?
5 or 3.
3. Perfect. All right. We have our numbers plugged in. All we have to do now is solve. So I'm going to write here slope equals, what is 4 minus 5?
-1.
-1. And what is -2 minus 3?
-5.
-5. Good. We know that because if we have a negative number minus a number, we can turn that into plus negative. Or you could type it in your calculator. So -2 plus -3 is -5. Are we done?
No.
No, we're not done. We have a negative divided by a negative. What is that going to give us?
Positive.
Positive. So our slope is 1/5. Good. Very good, guys. Now let's show the other way that we could do this. Let's use the same numbers. We have 3, 5, and -2, 4. What if I wanted to make this my x2 and this my x1? So I'm just going to switch them. I'll show you that it works both ways. Then since this is I'll also label that this is 1 and 2. We flip-flopped it. We'll make y2 5 and y1 4. So now let's just plug these values in to our little subtraction problem we're going to find. Okay, so let's do our y values first because they're on top. Which one is y2 now?
Y2 is 5.
Absolutely, so we'll put 5 minus, and what's y1?
4.
4. Now let's work with our x's. What's x2?
3.
3. And what's x1? -2. And remember, if we are subtracting a negative, or if you see two minus signs by each other, we can put them together and make it into a addition problem here. Okay, so now let's just solve the top and the bottom. What's 5 minus 4?
1.
1. And then what is 3 plus 2?
5.
5. You see that, guys? We got the same answer. Same answer. So it doesn't matter what order you put your coordinates in. It just matters that you stay consistent. If I have 5 minus 4, I have to do 3 minus -2. I couldn't do 5 minus 4 and -2 minus 3. That wouldn't be keeping it consistent. All right. Any questions about that? Okay, let's do another example. Let's do a few of these together. Let me get another piece of paper.
Okay, if on the bottom one,
Uh-huh.
if it's 3 minus a -2,
Yes.
and it came out to a +5,
Mm-hmm.
how did we not get a +5 and it came out a negative on the top?
On the top?
Yes, how did that happen?
So we did 4 minus 5 on the top, and that gave us -1. And then -2 minus 3. So remember, a subtraction problem is the same thing as adding a negative. So we just did -2 plus -3, and we got -5. So it looks like we got two different answers here. But because of the multiplication and division rules of negatives, if I have a negative on the top and the bottom, they just cancel out. They become positive.
Now that I understand,
Okay.
but I'm on the other side, that's where I'm having my confusion.
Mm-hmm.
When we brought the 1 and the 2s over here, but the top, they all came out in negative. Okay, -2 minus 3.
Okay, -2 minus 3.
How did it become a -3?
Mm,
And we got
okay.
a negative, or down here, we got a positive.
That is a great question. Let's explain further. So we had -2 minus 3, and then down here we had 3 minus -2.
Is it because the minus signs weren't together?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
now I'm following.
yep, whenever you see two minuses next to each other, we just put them together and make it into a plus. And then when we subtract a number, it's the same thing as adding a negative. So if I had -2 plus -3, I would get the same thing as whatever -2 minus 3 is. So here, let me write that out as well.
That goes back to our equation.
Yeah, it sure does.
Now it's kidding.
Yes, Chance.
Another thing I'd like to do
instead of viewing it, like as a concept, is a negative number is a debt. And then
Yes.
the whole number is an actual real, is something that you have. And then so if you have a negative 2, you're subtracting a real number from that. You now owe that 3. So that's
Yeah.
added into the debt. So you have now a negative 5.
Right, I love that. Chance, so Chance is kind of talking about thinking of these numbers as money values. You know, if I have negative $2 in my bank account, I owe $2, and then I take away $3 more. I have another debt of $3. Total, I'm gonna have a total debt of negative $5. And likewise, let's say I started with $3, but then I'm gonna take away a debt of 2. So instead of taking away, like if I have a negative number, it's like money you owe. Instead of adding a debt, saying I owe 2, I'm taking a debt away. So if I owed 2 and then I got rid of that, I'm actually giving myself 2 back. Does that make any sense? Okay, good. Good. Okay, guys, let's do a couple more practice problems like this. I'm going to, again, write the slope formula up here so we know m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's how we're going to solve. And let's give you 2 more coordinates. How about 7, negative 3, and 4, negative 10. Okay. What should I do to find the slope of the line that goes through these 2 points?
Let's label each coordinate.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start by labeling the coordinates. We'll just do it in the order I see them in. We'll call this coordinate 1, and we'll call 4, negative 10 our coordinate number 2, which means that the x value on the first coordinate will be our x1, the second one will be our x2. Let's go ahead and do that. x1 will be 7, x2 will be 4, and then y1 will be negative 3, and y2 will be negative 10. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and write out to the side here what I'm going to be plugging these values into. So my y minus my y over my x minus my x. Okay. What should we put in the top parentheses? We're starting with our y values.
Minus 3.
Minus 3. We will be using minus 3.
Negative 10 minus negative 3.
Yeah, so we decided to name this our y2, and we do y2 first. So we're going to do negative 10 minus, and then we're going to put our negative 3 here. Okay. Now let's work with our x's. What's going to go in the first slot? What's my x2?
4.
4 minus x1 is 7. Good. Okay, now all we have to do is solve, and if you want to do it on paper, great. If you want to type it into your calculator, also great. What are we going to get for the top number?
Minus 15, or negative 15.
Let's see. Negative 10 minus negative 3.
Negative 7.
Yeah, let's type that in. Negative 10 minus negative 3. It's going to give you negative 7. Okay, because remember, if we were to put these 2 minus signs together, it would become addition. So if I owe $10 and then I add $3 more to my bank account, I still owe 7. Yeah, we got it. That's okay. It just takes practice. All right, so we got -7 for our top number. And what is 4 minus 7? -3. I'm taking away more than I have. So we're going to also get a negative number here. -3. Are we done? No, we're not done. What do we need to do here?
Negative divided by a negative is positive.
Yes, our two negatives are going to cancel. So that means our slope is going to be positive 7/3. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. All right, guys, let's do another one together. What if I gave you -6, -2, and 17/12? All right. First, let's go ahead and label our coordinates. And I'm just going to do it in order from left to right. So I'll call -6 my x1. I'll call 17 my x2. I'll call -2 my y1. I'll call 12 my y2. All right, now to solve for slope, we just need to plug those values into my equation. Okay. What am I going to write on the top?
12 minus
Yep.
-2.
12 minus -2. Perfect. And then what about our x values? What are we writing on the bottom?
17 minus -6.
Perfect. 17 minus -6. Now, guys, before we try to solve this, let's go ahead and pay attention to the signs that we have going on here. I have two minuses, two negatives right beside each other. What are those going to do?
Plus,
They're going to turn these into addition problems. So we really just have 12 plus 2 over 17 plus 6. What is 12 plus 2? 14. What is 17 plus 6? 23. All right, guys, our slope of the line that goes through these 2 points is going to be 14 over 23. All right, awesome, awesome. Any questions about that one? Let's do one more together, and then I'm going to have you practice some on your own. Let's try -2, 7, and 4, 5. All right. What should we start with?
Let's label the coordinates.
Yes, let's label the coordinates. So I've got x1, x2, and then y1 and y2. Okay. Now, this is one thing that I think some people can get mixed up on very easily, because when we label x's and y's, we usually start with x. So whenever we go to plug the x's and y's into our equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, some people might try to start with the x values on top. So we need to remember that slope is rise, or up and down, over run, or left and right. Our y values are the ones that go up and down. The y is the rise, the x is the run. So let's go ahead and plug those in and keep that in mind. Our y's go first, then our x's. All right. Somebody tell me, what is going to go on top? 5 minus 7. Perfect. And then what's on bottom?
4 minus -2.
4 minus -2. Okay, let's go ahead and solve this. What is 5 minus 7? 5 minus 7 is -2. And then what is 4 minus -2? Positive 6. Very good. Do we need to do anything to this?
Yes,
A little bit. What do we need to do, Jeremiah?
we need to simplify the fraction.
Yeah, I would like you to try to simplify the fraction. So 2 and 6 are both even numbers. We can break this down even further. If I were to simplify 2 over 6, I know that 2 divided by 2 is -1, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So our slope is -1/3. All right, guys. I think y'all are doing a pretty good job with that. I'm going to write a couple of coordinates for you, and I want you to practice solving for slope on your own for a minute. So I'm going to make some random ones up right now. I don't know if it's going to be a pretty slope or not, but we'll see. Here's number 1, 2. I'm going to give you 4 problems. All right. Go ahead and work on those. I'm going to set a little timer for you, and I'm going to pause this recording. Boom. All right. Here we go, guys. Let's look at these together. What'd you guys get for the slope of number 1? 1? Did everybody get 1?
2 over 2.
Or 2 over 2 simplified to 1. Very good. Okay, so if we were to work this out, I'm going to go ahead and just do it really quickly because it sounds like everybody got it right. But in case people watching this video at home are confused, I'm going to work this out for them. So we do y2 minus y1, so 8 minus 6. Oops, I wrote it wrong, guys, sorry. 8 minus 6 over x2 minus x1 over 7 minus 5. And 8 minus 6 is 2. 7 minus 5 is also 2. And that is equal to 1. Very good job, guys. Okay, let's check out number 2. What did you guys get for the slope of line number 2?
Now we're 6 simplified to 5 over 3.
Okay, so 5 over 3. What else? I didn't solve it yet, so I don't know what the right answer is.
I just did my math wrong.
Oh no.
I did 5 over 2. I don't know why. I was like stuck on a 2, but it's 5 over 3.
Okay, so we got 5 over 3. Did anyone get something different than 5 over 3?
I got 1.6 also.
1.6, is that what 5 over 3 is? 5 divided by 3. 1.666, yep. Okay, did everybody get that? Okay, guys, come on.
6 instead of 5 over 3.
Let's work this out together and make sure it's right. It sounds like it is since everyone got the same thing. Okay, so y2 over y1, that's going to be 5 minus -5. That's just 5 plus 5, guys. Over x2 minus x1, 3 minus -3. That's just going to be 3 plus 3. So 10 over 6, which is simplifiable to 5 over 3. Or, if you put it into a decimal, it would be 1.67. All right, guys. Very good. Anybody do something different? Good. Okay, let's try number 3. What is the slope of number 3? What'd you guys get? 4? Anybody get something other than 4? Oh my goodness, y'all, this is wonderful. Let's double check just in case. I'm not going to label it this time because I think you guys can see it by now. So we've got y2 minus y1, so 10 minus 6 over x2 minus x1, so 5 minus 4. 10 minus 6 is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. Our slope is 4. Very nice. Very nice, guys. Okay, let's look at number 4. What slope did you get?
Negative 15 over 5, so 7.5 over 2, or 2.7.5 over 2.
Yeah, -3.
Okay, we got a couple different answers. Let's find out which one's correct. Let's do it together, guys. I'm going to label this one. All right, so we've got our x's, x1, x2, and our y's. I don't know who's going to be right, but we're going to find out together. Okay, so remember we put our y's on top, so we're going to do y2, negative 5, minus y1, which is 10, over x2, which is 2, minus negative 3, x1, minus negative 3. Okay, what is negative 5 minus 10? Negative 15. What is 2 minus negative 3?
5.
Positive 5. Okay, so negative 15 over positive 5, what can that simplify to?
-3.
-3. If we divide both of them by 5, so negative 15 divided by 5 is -3. 5 divided by 5 is 1. -3 over 1 is the same thing as just -3. All right. Michael, what did you do to get a different answer? Do you know which numbers you put in what spot?
I just divided it in half. I think.
Oh, okay. So you took 15 divided by 2 and got negative 7.5 over 2.5? Okay. So as a rule of thumb, if you are simplifying a fraction, I don't ever want to see a decimal in a fraction. Never, never. I want one or the other. So you could simplify it to -3 over 1, or like in number 2, we got 5 over 3. You could keep it as 5 over 3, or you could write it as a decimal. I do not want to see a decimal in a fraction though. So if you were dividing by 2 and it didn't come out pretty, I would try another number next. I would always try to figure out what's gonna probably be the same as the bottom number.
I have a question.
Yes, Star.
I don't watch how you write your formulas here. Do you always go from right, like, when you have them like here?
Mm-hmm.
I've been noticing you've been going from right to left.
Like 2, 1, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? You could do it the other way if you like the other way better. You
Oh, no,
could.
I didn't know if that was if there was a certain way that's better.
Not really. Not really. So like you could, if this is confusing, you could also say that m equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. As long as the first value is consistent, like here we have 2 first and then 1, here we have 1 first and then 2.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Either way is going to give you the same answer. The only difference in your answer might be like in this other example we did today, where when we did this coordinate first, we got -1 over -5, like this. Whereas when we flipped them and did the 5 and the -3 first, or 5 and the 3 first over here, it came out with 2 positive numbers and we didn't have to get rid of the negatives. So if you're looking at your coordinates and you're thinking, I would way rather do 5 minus 4 than 4 minus 5, do that. That just means that you also have to do 3 minus -2. You just have to be consistent with your order.
Okay.
That's all that matters.
Perfect.
All right. Do you have your hand up, Angela, or are you just
No, I'm
chilling?
just sitting.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, guys. How do we feel about finding slope? Sounds like you guys are doing really well with it. We're going to move on to the next thing. And I'm actually really excited about this because this is where it gets real. Okay? We just learned how to find slope. Now we are going to do something that is going to sound scary, but it's not, I promise. We are going to write an equation. You're going to be given this, and we're going to write the equation, y equals mx plus b. So, I'm going to show you how to do it first. I know normally we do that, that layout of our lesson. It's I do, and then we do together, and then you do it by yourself. So, this part is the I do. You can write down the example that I give you if you would like, but you're also welcome to just listen and absorb it as I explain it to you. So, let's say we are given a point and a slope, okay? So we want to remember that the equation that we are trying to write is going to look like this. Y equals m, or some number, mx plus b. So whenever we have an equation, for example, we might see y equals 1/2 x plus 2. Notice how when we see an equation like this, the only values that are filled in are the b value and the m value, or the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so we're not going to necessarily have to plug in values for x and y in our final answer. We want to have this format here. Now, if you look at this problem, they already gave us m. They gave us the slope. It's -4 over 3. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to go ahead and put that slope into our equation. And if we're color coding, I always like to use purple for slope. I don't know why, it's just what I do. Just like how I use red for x and blue for y. I try to keep it somewhat consistent. So for my slope, I'm going to put -4 over 3 x plus b. Okay, we are one step closer already to having our equation written out. We have y equals -4/3 x plus b. Now, we were given the slope and we were given a coordinate. Remember that a coordinate is labeled with the x value coming first and the y value coming second. And in our final equation, we just have to have a number for m, which we already do, and a number for b. We don't have a b yet. What values do we have, though, that we could plug in to solve for b? We have an x and a y. Guys, if I plugged in the x and the y, all that's left is b. We're just going to solve for b here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to keep my colors, make sure it's all organized here. So my y value is what? -2. Let's plug that into our equation. I've got -2 equals, now I have my slope was already in there. I'm going to write it again. -4/3. And then what's my x value?
1.
Yeah, it's just 1. Now, to show that it's multiplication, I like to put it in parentheses. There's my 1. Let me zoom in a little. Okay, and then we have plus b. We don't know what b is yet. Okay, so now we have the equation -2 equals -4/3 times 1 plus b. How could we find out what b is? What are we going to do?
Let's start with multiplication.
Yeah, let's start with multiplication. What are we multiplying?
Let's multiply 4/3 on
Mhm.
that 1. So
Yeah.
let's just have 4.
So
over 3
we're going to
negative.
multiply this, and that is going to give us any number times 1 is just itself. So we're going to rewrite our equation below. Now I have -2 equals -4/3 plus b. All right. What should I do now?
Multiply again. Let's multiply both sides by 3.
We could multiply by 3. I want to show you something a little different though. I'm going to show you a different way. So we're going to see this here as a single term. Our slope, we're going to call that one number. I don't really want to separate my 3 and then my -4. I want to keep it all together. So this is just a -4/3. When we have a negative number that we're trying to get rid of, we have -4/3 added to b. What is the inverse operation to get rid of a negative number? Do we remember?
Addition.
Addition. So I have -4/3. So to get this to cancel out, I'm going to just add 4/3. All right. Now, fractions, some people don't like to work with them. So if you wanted to at this point, we could see what 4/3 is, and we see that it's about 1.3. About 1.3. So I'm going to show you over here as well. I could just do -2 equals -1.3 plus b. And what I'm really doing here is I'm adding 1.3. All right. Now, whatever I do to one side of an equation, remember, I have to do it to both sides so that equal sign still holds true. So if I added 1.3 right here, I need to also add 1.3 to -2. Just like over here, I need to add 4/3 to -2. All right? Now these are going to cancel. And as you can see already, I think when you're working these out, the decimals are a little prettier to work with. This is a little confusing to me personally. If you like the fractions though, more power to you. I think this is going to look a little neater. Makes more sense in my brain. Okay, so now to find b, because now that this is gone, b is by itself. All we need to do is solve this problem. What is -2 plus 1.3? Or what is -2 plus 4/3?
0.7.
Let's see.
I got
Yeah. negative.
Clear.
Yeah.
So I'm going to type in -2 plus 1.3, and I'm going to get -0.7. Good. -0.7. Drop everything down, equals, and it's b. So guys, we just solved for b here. Now, if you wanted to do the fraction version, here's how we would type that into our calculator. I would do -2 plus, then I would have to use parentheses. So I would do parentheses, because this is what I'm doing. I'm adding this fraction. 4 divided by 3 close parentheses, enter. Very close number. Negative 0.66666 repeating, which rounds up to 0.7. So you got the same answer. You got the same answer. And we're going to put that down here, negative 0.7. All right. So we just found our B value. Let's look back at this equation. Okay, our problem said to write the equation of the line given the point and the given slope. All right, so remember we're trying to find y equals mx plus b. So we're going to write y equals, what's our m?
Negative 4/3.
Yep, negative 4 over 3. Y equals negative 4 over 3x. And then what's our b?
Negative 0.7.
Yes, negative 0.7. So since it is a negative, we are going to write minus instead of plus. We'll say minus 0.7. And that is the equation of the line. Guys, we just wrote an equation. That's pretty nifty. Okay, there's that first example, guys. Let's do another example together. Does anyone need to write this?
I'm working on it.
Okay, I'll leave it up for a minute. You just shout at me when you're done. I'm going to pause it. And when you guys leave, I'm going to have some practice problems that are totally optional. You don't have to do them, but if you would like extra practice, I'll have those available. I'm going to make one of those real quick. Sorry, guys. Here you go. I swear. But I want to make sure you guys have time for your exit ticket. Let's look at this equation here, or this point and this slope. We want to write the equation of this line. What should we do?
Well, first, we should put in the slope. Let's rewrite the equation.
Yeah, let's rewrite the equation. We have, our slope is 4, so we'll go ahead and write that in. So I have, I'm going to use a different marker. That one's getting a little flat. Y equals, my m is my slope, so 4 is my slope. 4x plus b. All right, so I've got that so far. Now what?
Let's rewrite again. Let's put our y as 0 and our x is -1.
Yeah, let's rewrite again. We are given an x value of -1 and a y value of 0. So let's use that point to our advantage and plug it in to solve for b. So just like Jeremiah said, we're going to do 0 equals 4 times x, which is -1, plus b. All right, now we have 0 equals 4 times -1 plus b. What's 4 times -1? -4. Bring everything down, plus b equals 0. Now what?
Plus the 4.
Plus 4 to get rid of it. Both sides. So we're going to have 4 equals b. We solved for b. We already have m, our slope. That does not change. So let's now use this information and write our final equation. Y equals, what's my m? 4x plus 4. Great job, guys. That's it. That is it. Okay, I am going to give you an exit ticket. This is day 16. I'm going to let you guys write that down while I'm making your exit ticket. Okay, can I move this? Anybody still need it? Okay, awesome. For your exit ticket, I am going to give you a coordinate and the slope. And I want you to, just like before, write the equation of the line. So for number 1, you will be given the coordinate 5, 7. And this is going to have a slope of 3/5. And then for number 2, I'm going to give you the coordinate 2, 25. And the slope is going to be -15. All right, I'm just going to give you 2 problems for your exit ticket today because these are a little bit time consuming. But once you are done with those 2 problems, you are free to go.